When Naomi Carter arrived at the Millionaire's estate that cold Monday morning, she thought she was just interviewing for a nanny position. She had no idea she was walking into a house where love had died 6 months ago, where two broken children cried themselves to sleep every night, and where a devastated father had locked his heart away forever. But what she couldn't have predicted was that the family's controlling aunt had been watching her every move, taking photographs and planning to destroy her the moment she got too close. Because in this house of secrets, falling in love wasn't just forbidden, it was dangerous. And when Diane Hale finally made her move, Naomi would discover that sometimes the people who claim to protect a family are the ones tearing it apart. What happens next will either heal four broken hearts or shatter them completely. If you're watching this story unfold, hit that subscribe button and tell me which city you're calling home from. I love connecting with viewers from around the world. The cold Monday morning air bit at Naomi Carter's cheeks as she stood before the tall iron gates of the Hale estate. Her breath came out in small white puffs. She checked her phone again. 7:30 on the dot, perfect timing for her trial day. The house stretched wide and tall behind perfectly trimmed hedges. Every window gleamed. Every stone looked like it had been placed just so. Naomi smoothed down her navy blue sweater and picked up her small bag. Inside were crayons, a few picture books, and Band-Aids, tools of her trade. The gate buzzed open before she could press the button. Someone was watching. Naomi walked up the curved driveway, her boots crunching on the thin layer of frost. The front door opened before she reached it. A woman in her 40s stood there, brown hair pulled back tight, wearing a crisp white shirt and dark pants. "Miss Carter, I'm Mara Finch." Her handshake was firm but quick. "I manage the household. Please come in." The inside of the house felt like a museum. Everything was clean and quiet and expensive. Naomi's footsteps echoed on the marble floor as she followed Mara down a long hallway lined with family photos in silver frames. "The children are—" Mara paused, searching for the right word. "Raw. They've been through a lot, and Mr. Hale likes things controlled, orderly." From somewhere above them came the sound of crying. A child's voice, high and upset. Mara's jaw tightened. That would be Evan, 5 years old. He's been having a difficult morning. They climbed a wide staircase with a wooden banister that felt smooth under Naomi's hand. The crying got louder. At the top of the stairs, Mara led her down another hallway to an open door. Inside, a bright bedroom, a little girl with blonde hair in tangles stood with her arms crossed. Her face was red and streaky with tears. On the floor next to her sat a little boy, also blonde, clutching a stuffed elephant and sobbing. "I don't want—" "These shoes!" the girl yelled. "They're stupid! Everything is stupid!" "Lily," Mara said in a tired voice, "this is Miss Carter. She's here to help today." Lily looked at Naomi with eyes that were blue like the sky after a storm. Angry, hurt, testing, Naomi knelt down on the carpet so she was level with both children. She didn't say anything at first, just sat there, calm and still. Evan's crying slowed to hiccups. He peeked at her over his elephant's fuzzy head. "Good morning, Lily." "Good morning, Evan." Naomi's voice was soft but clear. "I can see you're having a hard time with those shoes." "I want Daddy," Evan whispered. Naomi's heart squeezed tight. "Where is Daddy?" "Downstairs," Lily said with a bitter laugh that sounded too old for her 8 years. "But he doesn't come up here anymore. He can't." Mara cleared her throat. "Mr. Hale had an accident 6 months ago. He uses a wheelchair now." Naomi nodded. She'd been told this when the agency called. What they hadn't told her was how these children were drowning in sadness. "Let me look at these shoes." Naomi picked up the pair on the floor. They were black patent leather, shiny and stiff, school shoes. "These do look uncomfortable. Do you have another pair?" Lily blinked. No adult had agreed with her about the shoes before. "I have sneakers," she said slowly. "Can you show me?" Lily walked to her closet and pulled out white sneakers with pink laces, much better for little feet. "These look more comfortable," Naomi said. "What do you think, Lily? Would these work for school today?" For the first time since Naomi had walked in, Lily almost smiled. "Okay," she whispered. Naomi helped her put them on. Then she turned to Evan, who was watching with wide eyes. "What about you? Are your shoes giving you trouble too?" Evan shook his head. He had on small boots that looked just right. "Good. Do you need help getting ready for school? Another shake of the head. I think, Naomi said, standing up and brushing off her knees, we should go get some breakfast. I bet you're both hungry. I don't want breakfast, Lily said, but her voice wasn't as sharp now. That's okay. You don't have to eat if you don't want to. But maybe you could sit with us while Evan and I eat? Lily thought about this. Then she nodded. Mara led them all downstairs to a kitchen that sparkled with granite counters and stainless steel everything. The kitchen was bigger than Naomi's whole apartment. Cereal's in the pantry, Mara said. Milk in the fridge. I'll be in the office if you need anything. She left them alone. Naomi opened cabinets until she found bowls and spoons. She poured cereal for Evan and set it on the long table by the window. Lily sat down next to her brother but didn't ask for food. Do you like stories? Naomi asked as Evan crunched his cereal. Both children nodded. I know a story about a little elephant who was very brave. Would you like to hear it? As Naomi told the story, she watched Lily slowly reach over and take a piece of cereal from Evan's bowl. Then, another. By the end of the story, Lily was eating too. When they were done, Naomi helped them gather their backpacks and jackets. They were almost ready to leave for school when a voice called from the next room. Children, are you ready? The voice was deep and careful. A man's voice. Lily and Evan both froze. That's Daddy, Evan whispered. They walked into the living room together. Naomi saw him right away. Graham Hale sat in a black wheelchair near the tall windows. He was younger than she'd expected, maybe 30. His brown hair was neat and his clothes were expensive, but his face looked tired, worn down. His eyes moved to Naomi and stayed there, studying her. Mr. Hale, Naomi said. I'm Naomi Carter. Yes? He didn't smile. How are they doing? They're ready for school. Lily chose comfortable shoes. Evan finished his breakfast. Graham's eyebrows went up just a little, like this was surprising news. Good, he looked at his children. Have a good day at school. Listen to your teacher. Okay, Daddy, Lily said quietly. Evan ran over to his father's wheelchair. Graham reached down and rubbed his son's head just for a second. It was quick, like he was afraid to touch too much. We should go, Naomi said gently. Don't want to be late. At the front door, Lily stopped. Will you be here when we get home? The question hung in the air. Naomi could feel Graham listening from the next room. I'll be here at 3:30, Naomi said, right when school ends. It wasn't really an answer, but it was honest. The school was only 10 minutes away. Naomi drove Mara's car, a silver sedan that smelled like leather and vanilla air freshener. In the back seat, Lily stared out the window while Evan played with his elephant. At the school, Naomi walked them to their classrooms. A woman with kind eyes and graying hair approached them in the hallway. You must be the new nanny, she said. I'm Tessa Ward, Lily's teacher. We've been hoping someone good would come along. How has Lily been doing? Naomi asked quietly. Tessa glanced around to make sure Lily was out of hearing. Struggling. Both children have been. It's been a hard few months for the family. Naomi nodded. I'll do my best. That's all anyone can do, Tessa said. Let me know if you need anything at all. On the drive back to the house, Naomi thought about those words. A hard few months. She could see it in everything. The too quiet house, the children who acted older than their years, the father who touched his son like he might break something. Back at the house, Naomi let herself in with the key Mara had given her. The house felt even more silent now without the children's voices. She found cleaning supplies under the kitchen sink and got to work. Not because the house was dirty, but because she needed something to do with her hands while she thought. She was wiping down the counters when she heard it. A crash from somewhere else in the house, followed by a muffled curse. Naomi followed the sound down a hallway she hadn't been in before. A door was slightly open. Through it, she could see Graham in his wheelchair, staring down at a broken coffee mug on the floor. Coffee spread in a dark puddle around the white pieces. She knocked softly on the door frame. Graham looked up. His face went hard. I can clean that up for you, Naomi offered. I can do it myself. I'm sure you can, but I'm here, and I don't mind helping. For a long moment, they stared at each other. Then, Graham rolled his wheelchair back, making space. Naomi found paper towels in the small kitchen area nearby and knelt down to clean up the mess. She didn't talk while she worked, didn't ask what happened, just cleaned. "Thank you," Graham said when she was done. "You're welcome." She started to leave, then turned back. "Your children are wonderful," she said. "They're hurting, but they're wonderful." Something flickered in Graham's eyes. Pain, maybe, or hope. "I know," he said quietly. The rest of the morning passed slowly. Naomi explored the house a little, getting to know where everything was. She found the playroom upstairs, filled with toys that looked like they hadn't been touched in months. She found a library with books from floor to ceiling. She found a sunroom with plants that someone was taking good care of. At noon, she made herself a simple lunch and ate it at the kitchen table. The house felt lonely around her. At 3:15, she drove back to the school. Lily came out of her classroom looking tired. Evan bounced out of his, Elephant still in his arms. "How was school?" Naomi asked as they walked to the car. "Fine," Lily said. It was the kind of fine that meant nothing was fine at all. "I painted a picture," Evan announced. "It has a big purple flower. I'd love to see it when we get home." Home. The word slipped out before Naomi could stop it. This wasn't her home. This was a job, a trial day. But Evan smiled like it was the most natural thing in the world. Back at the house, Naomi set up Evan's painting supplies at the kitchen table while Lily did homework. The afternoon felt easier than the morning, more relaxed. Graham appeared in the doorway around 4 o'clock. He watched as Naomi helped Evan clean his paintbrush. "How was school today?" he asked his children. This time, they actually answered. Lily told him about a book they'd read. Evan showed him his purple flower painting. Graham listened and asked questions and almost smiled. "Dinner's at 6, he told Naomi. "Mara usually handles cooking, but she had to leave early today." "I can cook," Naomi said. "If that's okay." Graham looked surprised. "You don't have to do that." "I want to. What do they like to eat?" "Anything that isn't too complicated," Lily said. "We're not picky." Naomi made spaghetti with butter and cheese. Simple, but filling. She set the table in the formal dining room, then thought better of it and moved everything to the kitchen table instead. More cozy. Graham joined them for dinner. It was quiet at first, but not uncomfortable. Evan told a story about a boy in his class who brought a frog to show and tell. Lily asked if they could have a pet someday. "Maybe," Graham said. It was the first time Naomi had heard him give his children anything but a definite answer. After dinner, while the children watched a cartoon in the living room, Naomi cleaned the dishes. Graham stayed in the kitchen, watching her work. "They seem calmer," he said finally. "They're good kids. They just need routine, consistency." "And you think you can give them that?" Naomi dried her hands on a dish towel and turned to face him. "I think we can all try to give them that. Together." Graham was quiet for a long time. Then he nodded, just once. At 7:30, it was time for baths and bedtime. Naomi ran a warm bath for Evan while Lily took a shower in her own bathroom. She helped them brush their teeth and put on pajamas. "Story time?" Evan asked hopefully. "One story," Naomi agreed. They all piled into Evan's room, even Lily. Naomi read a book about a mouse who went on an adventure. The children leaned against her on either side, warm and sleepy. When the story was over, she tucked Evan into his bed and kissed his forehead. "Good night, sweet boy." She walked Lily to her room and tucked her in, too. "Will you really be here tomorrow?" Lily whispered. "I hope so," Naomi said honestly. "Sleep well." Downstairs, she found Mara in the kitchen, just returning from her errands. "How did it go?" Mara asked. "Good, I think. The children are wonderful." "They are. They've just been through a lot." Mara studied Naomi's face. "Mr. Hale is making his decision tonight about whether to hire you." Naomi's stomach fluttered. "I understand. For what it's worth, I haven't seen the children this relaxed in months." "Thank you." Naomi gathered her purse and coat. At the front door, she paused. Through the living room doorway, she could see Graham in his wheelchair, staring at a tablet in his hands. He looked alone, sad. She wanted to say something, but she didn't know what. So she quietly let herself out into the cold night air. As she drove home, Naomi thought about Lily's question. "Will you really be here tomorrow?" She hoped so. Those children needed stability. They needed someone who would stay. But more than that, Naomi realized, she wanted to stay. Something about this family had gotten under her skin. The broken father trying so hard to hold everything together. the children who were braver than they should have to be. She wanted to help them heal. All of them. At her small apartment, Naomi called her best friend Maya. "How did it go?" Maya asked. "Those kids are scared," Naomi said, sitting on her couch in the dark, "and their father is shut down, like he's afraid to love them too much." "That's heavy. Can you handle it?" Naomi thought about Evan's shy smile when she read to him, about Lily choosing the comfortable shoes, about Graham's face when she told him his children were wonderful. "I think so," she said. "I hope so." After she hung up, Naomi sat in the quiet of her apartment and thought about the day. She'd done good work. She knew she had. The question was whether Graham could see past his fear long enough to let her help. Meanwhile, across town in the big house, Graham sat alone in his study. The tablet in his hands showed the security camera feed from earlier that day. He watched Naomi kneeling on the kitchen floor to clean up his mess, watched her helping his children with patient hands, watched her reading to them like they were her own. He felt ashamed for watching, but he needed to know, needed to see if she was real, if she was safe. The children had laughed today. When was the last time he'd heard that sound? Graham turned off the tablet and set it aside. He made his decision. In the morning, he would tell Mara to call Naomi Carter. They would offer her the job. 2 weeks to start, then they'd see. It was a risk, but maybe it was time to take one. Upstairs, Lily lay in her bed staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, she wasn't afraid to go to sleep. Miss Carter had said she would be here tomorrow. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she would stay. Next door, Evan hugged his elephant tight and dreamed about purple flowers and gentle voices reading stories. The house settled around them, quieter now, more peaceful. It was just the beginning, but sometimes beginnings were enough. The next morning came gray and cold. Naomi had barely slept, wondering if her phone would ring, wondering if she'd gotten through to them. At 7:30, her phone buzzed. It was Mara's number. "Miss Carter, can you come in this morning? Mr. Hale would like to speak with you." Naomi's heart jumped. "Of course. What time?" 8 o'clock, if that works." "I'll be there." Naomi arrived at the house right on time. Mara met her at the door with what might have been the beginning of a smile. "He's in the kitchen," Mara said. Naomi found Graham at the table, a cup of coffee in front of him. He looked tired but determined. "Miss Carter, please sit." Naomi sat across from him and waited. "I'd like to offer you the position," Graham said without any small talk. 2 weeks to start, probation period. If it works out, we'll make it permanent." Relief flooded through Naomi's chest. "I accept." "There are rules," Graham continued. "Boundaries. This is a professional arrangement." "Of course. The children's schedules are non-negotiable. School, meals, bedtime. No exceptions." "Understood." "And," Graham hesitated, "no personal relationships with the family. You're here for the children, nothing more." The words stung a little. But Naomi understood. This man was protecting himself the only way he knew how. "I'm here for the children," she agreed. "That's my priority." Graham nodded, satisfied. "Mara will go over the details with you. Salary, benefits, all of that." "Thank you," Naomi said. "I won't let you down." Something flickered in Graham's eyes. Hope, maybe, or fear. "See that you don't." As if summoned by their voices, Lily and Evan appeared in the kitchen doorway. Both were still in their pajamas, hair messy from sleep. "Miss Carter!" Evan ran to her and threw his arms around her waist. Lily hung back cautious. "Are you staying?" "I'm staying," Naomi said, "at least for now." Lily's face broke into the first real smile Naomi had seen from her. "Come on," Naomi said, standing up. "Let's get you two ready for school. We have a lot of days ahead of us." As they headed upstairs together, Graham watched them go. His children were chattering again, planning their day with excitement instead of dread. Maybe this would work. Maybe Naomi Carter was exactly what his family needed. But deep down, in the part of his heart he kept locked away, Graham was afraid of something else entirely. He was afraid she might be exactly what he needed too. And that terrified him. Because everyone he'd ever needed had left him in the end. His parents, in a car accident when he was 25. His wife Sarah, who couldn't handle his disability and filed for divorce 6 months after the accident. He couldn't survive losing someone else. Especially not someone his children were already starting to love. Better to keep his distance. Better to keep it professional. Better to keep his heart locked away where it couldn't get broken again. But as he listened to his children's laughter echoing down the hallway, Graham wondered if it was already too late for that. The morning routine went smoother than any morning in months. Naomi had learned where everything was yesterday, so breakfast appeared without drama. Toast and scrambled eggs for Lily, who had decided she was hungry after all. Cereal and sliced bananas for Evan. "I want to show Miss Carter my rock collection," Lily announced between bites. "After school," Graham said automatically. Then he caught himself. "If Miss Carter wants to see it." "I would love to see your rock collection," Naomi said. "Do you have a favorite one?" "The purple one. It's called Amethyst. Daddy got it for me before—" Lily's voice trailed off. "Before the accident." The words hung in the air, unspoken, but understood by everyone. "That sounds beautiful," Naomi said gently. "Purple is a lovely color for a rock." The moment passed without drama. Naomi made a mental note. These children lived in a world divided into before and after. Before Daddy's accident and after. She would need to be careful with those memories. At school drop-off, Tessa Ward pulled Naomi aside again. "I have to tell you," the teacher said quietly. "Lily actually raised her hand in class yesterday afternoon. She hasn't done that in weeks. That's wonderful. Whatever you're doing, keep doing it. These kids need stability so badly." Driving back to the house, Naomi thought about that word. Stability. It meant showing up every day. It meant keeping promises. It meant not leaving when things got hard. Around noon, Diane Hale arrived. Naomi heard the front door open and close with authority, heard sharp heels clicking on the marble floor, heard a voice that carried the weight of money and expectations. "Graham, where are you?" Naomi was in the kitchen, making herself lunch. She stayed quiet, listening. "Aunt Diane," Graham's voice came from his study. He didn't sound happy. "How's the new girl working out? What's her name again?" "Naomi Carter, and it's only been 2 days." "Well, I hope she's better than the last one. That woman had no sense of boundaries at all. Thought she could be your friend instead of your employee." Naomi felt heat rise in her cheeks. She hadn't met Diane yet, but she already didn't like her. "The children seem to like her," Graham said. "The children like the last one, too. That doesn't mean she's right for this family. We have a reputation to maintain, Graham. Standards." There was a pause. Then Graham's voice quieter now. "I know. Good. Make sure this one understands her place. No personal involvement. No getting too comfortable. This is a job, nothing more." When Diane left 20 minutes later, Naomi was still in the kitchen. Diane didn't introduce herself or even acknowledge Naomi's presence, just walked past like she was part of the furniture. But Naomi felt those cold eyes studying her, measuring her clothes, her hair, her very presence in this expensive house. The message was clear. You don't belong here. At 3:30, she picked up Lily and Evan from school. Both children seemed lighter today, more talkative on the drive home. "Can we do art today?" Evan asked. "I want to paint another flower." "Of course. I set up supplies in the kitchen." The afternoon flew by. Homework first, then art time. Evan painted purple and yellow flowers while Lily worked on a friendship bracelet. At 5 o'clock, Lily led Naomi up to her room to see the rock collection. It was impressive for an 8-year-old. Dozens of specimens arranged carefully in a wooden case, each one labeled with perfect handwriting. "Daddy helped me write the labels," Lily said, running her finger over the neat printing. "Before," there was that word again. Before. "He must have been very patient with you," Naomi said. "These labels are beautiful. He used to love rocks too when he was little. Grandma told me." "Maybe he still does." Lily shrugged. "He doesn't talk about rocks anymore. He doesn't talk about lots of things." Naomi's heart ached for this little girl, who was trying so hard to understand why her father had disappeared behind walls of sadness and fear. That evening at dinner, Naomi watched Graham, with his children. He was present, but distant, like he was viewing them through glass instead of sitting right at the same table. After dinner, during bedtime routines, both children seemed to deflate a little. "Why doesn't Daddy tuck us in anymore?" Evan asked as Naomi pulled his covers up to his chin. "He loves you very much," Naomi said. "Sometimes adults need time to figure things out." "Is he mad at us?" "Oh, honey, no, he's not mad at you. He could never be mad at you." In Lily's room, the questions were harder. The other nannies said Daddy was sad because of his legs, Lily whispered. Is that true? Naomi sat on the edge of Lily's bed and chose her words carefully. I think Daddy is sad about a lot of things. His legs are part of it, but not all of it. Is he sad because Mommy left? Naomi's breath caught. She hadn't known about the mother leaving. I don't know, sweetheart. But I know he's not sad because of you and Evan. You two are the best parts of his whole world. Then why won't he play with us anymore? Maybe he's forgotten how. Maybe he needs someone to remind him. Could you remind him? The hope in Lily's voice was almost too much to bear. I can try, Naomi said, but it has to be his choice to remember. Will you stay long enough to try? I'll stay as long as you need me. It was a bigger promise than she should have made, but looking at this little girl's face, Naomi couldn't bring herself to give a smaller answer. Downstairs, after the children were asleep, Naomi found Graham in the living room, staring out the dark windows. They're both tucked in, she reported. Good, thank you. Mr. Hale? The children have questions about why you've pulled away from them. They think you're angry with them. I'm not angry with them. I know that, but they don't. They see their father who used to play with them and read to them, and now he barely talks to them. They think they did something wrong. Graham was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was rough. I don't know how to be their father anymore. It was the most honest thing he'd said since she'd met him. Maybe you could start small, Naomi suggested gently. Read one story, help with one puzzle. You don't have to be the same father you were before. You just have to be their father now. Graham stared at her with those tired eyes. What if I can't? What if I'm broken in too many ways? Then we figure it out together, one day at a time. The word we slipped out before Naomi could stop it. Too personal, too involved. Graham noticed. She could see it in the way his expression shifted, walls going back up. This is professional, he said quietly. You're here for the children. Yes, Naomi agreed. I'm here for the children. But as she drove home that night, Naomi knew it was becoming more complicated than that. She was starting to care about all of them, the broken father, along with his hurting children. And that could be dangerous for everyone involved. The next morning brought gray skies and a chill that seemed to seep through the walls of the Hale house. Naomi arrived early, as had become her habit. She liked the quiet moments before the children woke up, when she could prepare breakfast and set the tone for the day. She was setting out cereal bowls when she heard a sound from down the hallway. A muffled thump, followed by what might have been crying. Naomi hesitated. It wasn't her place to investigate, but the sound came again, and this time she was sure. Someone was upset. She followed the sound to Graham's study. The door was slightly open. Through the gap she could see him hunched over his wheelchair, his shoulders shaking. On the floor beside him lay a tablet, its screen cracked from where it had fallen. Naomi knocked softly. Graham's head snapped up, his face wet with tears he quickly tried to wipe away. I'm sorry, Naomi said. I heard... Are you okay? Fine. His voice was rough. Just clumsy. Naomi stepped into the room and picked up the broken tablet. When she turned it over, she could see what had been playing before it fell. A video of Lily and Evan from months ago, laughing as they built a fort out of couch cushions. Graham was in the video too, sitting on the floor, helping them stack pillows. Before the accident, before everything changed. They look so happy, Naomi said gently. Graham stared at the cracked screen. I used to watch these at night, after they go to bed. I know it's pathetic. It's not pathetic, it's love. Something broke in Graham's face. He covered his eyes with his hands. I don't know how to get back to that, he whispered. I don't know how to be the father they need. Naomi set the tablet on his desk and knelt beside his wheelchair, bringing herself to his eye level. You don't have to be the same father you were before, she said. You just have to be present, here, with them. What if I can't? What if I'm too broken? Then you start small, one story, one conversation, one moment at a time. Graham looked at her with red-rimmed eyes. Why do you care so much? The question caught Naomi off guard. Why did she care? This was supposed to be just a job. Because they love you, she said finally. And love like that is worth fighting for. From upstairs came the sound of little feet running down the hallway, Evan's voice calling for his elephant, The day was starting. Graham straightened in his chair, wiping his face. They can't see me like this. No, but maybe tonight you could read them a story. Just one. Graham nodded. Not quite a promise, but not a refusal either. I'll think about it. Breakfast was livelier than usual. Evan had found a caterpillar in the garden and wanted to bring it inside to live with them. Lily was excited about a field trip to the Science Museum planned for next week. Can Daddy come to the museum? Lily asked suddenly. The question hung in the air. Graham, who had joined them for breakfast, went very still. I don't think Daddy can make it to the field trip, sweetheart, Naomi said carefully. Why not? It's just walking around looking at things. Daddy can do that. Graham cleared his throat. Museums are difficult for wheelchairs. Lots of stairs and narrow spaces. The Science Museum has elevators, Lily said with 8-year-old logic. I checked on their website for my report. Naomi watched Graham's face. She could see him searching for another excuse, another reason to say no. Maybe we could call and ask about accessibility, Naomi suggested, if you want to. Graham looked trapped. His children were watching him with hopeful faces. Finally, he nodded. We can call. It was a small victory, but Lily beamed like she'd won the lottery. The morning passed quietly. Naomi drove the children to school and returned to find Diane's expensive car in the driveway. Her heart sank. Inside, Diane was waiting in the living room, her coat still on, her expression sharp. Miss Carter, sit down. We need to talk. Naomi remained standing. Is there a problem with my work? Your work is fine. It's your boundaries I'm concerned about. I don't understand. Diane stood and began pacing, her heels clicking on the marble floor. This family has been through enough. Graham is vulnerable right now. The children are vulnerable. The last thing they need is someone who thinks she can fix everything. I'm not trying to fix anything. I'm just doing my job. Are you? Because from where I stand, it looks like you're getting too involved, too comfortable. Heat rose in Naomi's cheeks. The children need consistency. They need someone who cares about their well-being. They need a nanny, not a savior. Diane's voice was ice cold, and Graham certainly doesn't need another woman who thinks she can change him. The words hit their target. Another woman. The children's mother had left after the accident. Now Diane was warning Naomi not to get too close. I understand you want to protect your family, Naomi said carefully. But pushing everyone away isn't protection, it's isolation. Diane's eyes flashed. You have no idea what this family has been through, what Graham has sacrificed to give those children stability. Don't you dare lecture me about protection. I'm not lecturing anyone. I'm just trying to help. Then help by doing your job and nothing more. No personal conversations, no attempts to involve Graham in activities he's not ready for, no playing therapist. Naomi wanted to argue, but she couldn't afford to lose this job, not when Lily and Evan were just starting to feel safe again. I understand, she said quietly. Good. Diane picked up her purse. I'll be checking in regularly. Don't give me a reason to recommend your replacement. After Diane left, Naomi sat in the kitchen and tried to steady her breathing. She felt like a teenager who'd been scolded by a strict teacher. But underneath the embarrassment was something else. Anger. Diane was so focused on protecting Graham that she couldn't see how her control was hurting him, how it was hurting the children too. When Graham appeared in the kitchen an hour later, Naomi was still thinking about the conversation. Aunt Diane says she spoke with you, he said without looking at her. She did. She's just looking out for the family. She's been our rock since the accident. Naomi heard the warning in his voice. Don't push, don't challenge Diane's authority. I respect that, Naomi said, but I want you to know that everything I do is for Lily and Evan's benefit. That's all I care about. Graham nodded, but she could see the distance in his eyes, the walls going back up. Good. That's how it should be. But that afternoon, when Naomi picked up the children from school, something had changed. Lily was quiet in the car, staring out the window instead of chattering about her day. How was school, honey? Naomi asked. Fine, Lily mumbled. At home, while Evan painted another flower, Lily sat at the kitchen table with her homework, but didn't write anything. What's going on? Naomi asked, sitting beside her. Lily's eyes filled with tears. Mrs. Ward asked if Daddy was coming to the museum. I said maybe. But then Sarah Miller said her mom heard that my daddy never goes anywhere because he's ashamed of his wheelchair. Naomi's heart clenched. Oh, sweetheart. Is that true? Is Daddy ashamed of us? No, baby. Your daddy loves you more than anything in the world. He's not ashamed of you or his wheelchair. Sometimes adults just need time to figure things out. But what if he never figures it out? What if he never wants to do things with us again? The pain in Lily's voice was too much to bear. This 8-year-old shouldn't have to worry about whether her father loved her enough to show up. Can I tell you a secret? Naomi said. Lily nodded. Your daddy watches videos of you and Evan every night. Happy videos from before his accident. He misses playing with you so much it makes him cry. Lily's eyes went wide. Really? Really. He's not staying away because he doesn't love you. He's staying away because he loves you so much, he's scared of disappointing you. That's silly, Lily said. He could never disappoint us. We just want him to be our daddy again. Maybe you could tell him that. Sometimes daddies need to hear things like that. That evening, as Naomi was cleaning up after dinner, she heard voices from the living room. Lily's voice, young and earnest. Graham's voice, surprised and careful. Daddy? Miss Carter says you watch videos of us, happy videos. A long pause. Sometimes, yes. We could make new happy videos, if you wanted. Another pause, longer this time. I would like that. And Daddy? You could never disappoint us. We just want you to be our daddy, not perfect daddy, just our daddy. Naomi heard Graham's breath catch. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with emotion. Come here, baby girl. Naomi smiled as she dried the dishes, listening to the sound of her father holding his daughter. Maybe Diane was right about boundaries, but maybe some boundaries were meant to be crossed. Later that night, after the children were asleep, Graham appeared in the kitchen where Naomi was finishing the last of the cleaning. Thank you, he said simply. For what? For telling Lily about the videos, for helping her understand. She needed to know you love her. Graham was quiet for a moment. Then, I called the museum. They do have full accessibility. Good elevators, wide hallways. I could go to the field trip if Lily wants me to. Naomi's heart lifted. I think she would love that. Would you help me figure out how to do it? The logistics, I mean. I haven't been in public much since, of course. We'll figure it out together. The word together hung between them. Not quite professional anymore, but not quite personal either. Something in between. Naomi, Graham said as she was gathering her things to leave. It was the first time he'd used her first name. Yes? Why did you really take this job? You could work for any family in the city. Why us? Naomi considered her answer carefully. Because Lily and Evan need someone who won't give up on them. And I think you need that too. Graham stared at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. Thank you, he said again, for not giving up. As Naomi drove home, she thought about Diane's warning, about boundaries and professional distance, about the danger of caring too much. But looking back at the house where a father was finally starting to remember how to love his children openly again, she couldn't bring herself to regret crossing those lines. Some things were more important than boundaries. The next few days passed in a new rhythm. Graham made small efforts to be more present. He joined them for breakfast every morning. He asked about homework and school projects. He even helped Evan practice tying his shoes. But the real test came on Friday morning, the day of the museum field trip. Naomi arrived early to help with preparations. She'd researched the museum's layout, planned the best routes, even called ahead to make sure there would be accessible parking. Graham was in the kitchen when she arrived, fully dressed but pale with nerves. I don't know if I can do this, he said. Why not? What if people stare? What if the other parents think, what if I embarrass Lily? Naomi sat down across from him. What if none of that matters? What if all that matters is that your daughter gets to show off her daddy to her friends? But what if... Graham, she used his first name deliberately, making him look at her. Lily doesn't care if you're in a wheelchair. She just cares that you're there. That's all any of this is about. Just showing up. When Lily came down for breakfast and saw her father in his good jacket. Her face lit up like Christmas morning. "You're really coming." "I'm really coming," Graham confirmed. Evan, not to be outdone, threw his arms around his father's neck. "I wish I could come too." "Next time," Graham promised. "We'll find a museum trip for kindergartners too." The field trip was a success. Graham navigated the museum with more confidence than he'd expected. The other parents were friendly and inclusive. Most importantly, Lily glowed with pride every time she introduced her daddy to her classmates. "My dad knows all about the space exhibit," she told anyone who would listen. "He used to be an engineer before he became disabled." Used to be. Before he became disabled, not before the accident. Lily was learning a new way to tell their story, one that didn't erase who her father still was. At the planetarium show, Graham sat in the accessible seating with Lily beside him. In the darkness, as the stars wheeled overhead, he felt something he hadn't felt in months. Peace. After the trip, as they walked to the car, Tessa Ward caught up with them. "Mr. Hale, I just wanted to say how much it meant to Lily that you came today. She's been talking about it all week." "Thank you for making it possible," Graham replied. "Actually, I think we have your nanny to thank for that. Miss Carter has been wonderful with both children." Graham looked at Naomi, who was helping Lily with her jacket. For the first time since his accident, he felt grateful instead of bitter. Grateful for this woman who had walked into their broken lives and reminded them how to be a family. That evening, Lily drew a picture of the day. The whole family at the museum, with Graham's wheelchair included front and center. She titled it, "My Best Day Ever." Evan, not to be outdone, made his own drawing. It showed Naomi reading stories while Graham watched from his wheelchair, smiling. "That's our family," Evan announced proudly. "Our family." The words hit both Graham and Naomi at the same time. Because somewhere along the way, that's what they'd become. Not just an employer and employee, but something more complicated and more precious, something that felt like home. But that night, as Graham tucked his children into bed for the first time in months, he felt a flutter of fear alongside the joy. Because if Naomi had become part of their family, that meant she could leave too, just like Sarah had left when things got hard. And Graham wasn't sure he could survive losing someone else he'd learned to depend on, especially not when that someone had taught his children to smile again. The weekend brought a different kind of challenge. Saturday mornings had always been family time before the accident, pancakes and cartoons and lazy mornings in pajamas. But since the accident, weekends had become just another version of weekdays, structured, careful, distant. Naomi arrived Saturday morning to find Graham in the kitchen, staring at the pancake mix on the counter like it was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "I used to make pancakes every Saturday," he said without looking up. "The kids loved them, but I can't reach the griddle anymore." The admission was quiet but painful, another thing the accident had taken away. "I could get the griddle down for you," Naomi offered. "That's not the point. I used to be able to do this myself." Naomi understood. It wasn't about the pancakes. It was about independence, about being the father who provided and cared for his children instead of the one who needed help with everything. "What if we did it together?" she suggested. "You could teach me how you used to make them. I'll be your hands for the high stuff, and you can be the expert." Graham looked at her for a long moment, then he nodded. "Okay, let's try." It took longer than it used to, and it wasn't perfect. Graham had to direct Naomi through each step, and she had to ask questions about things that used to be automatic for him. But when Lily and Evan came downstairs to find their father at the stove, directing the pancake-making operation, their faces lit up with joy. "Daddy's making pancakes!" Evan shouted. "We're making pancakes," Graham corrected, and for the first time in months he was smiling. They ate breakfast at the kitchen table, sticky with syrup and warm with laughter. Lily told jokes. Evan got syrup in his hair. Graham laughed so hard he nearly choked on his orange juice. It was imperfect and chaotic and absolutely perfect. "This is the best Saturday ever," Lily declared. And looking around at her messy, happy, healing family, Naomi couldn't disagree. But even in the middle of the joy, she noticed Graham watching her, studying her face like he was trying to memorize it, like he was already preparing for her to leave. That afternoon, while the children napped, Graham found Naomi in the garden, weeding the flower beds that had been neglected since his accident. "You don't have to do that," he said, rolling his wheelchair onto the stone path. I like gardening. It's peaceful. Sarah used to love those flowers, Graham said quietly. After the accident, she couldn't even look at them. Too many memories of how things used to be. It was the first time he'd really talked about his ex-wife. Naomi kept working, not wanting to push but hoping he would continue. She tried, for about 3 months after I came home from the hospital. But every day was harder than the last. Every night I could see her looking at me and thinking about the man she married who could walk. I'm sorry, Naomi said softly. I don't blame her, not really. This isn't the life she signed up for. Naomi looked up at him. What about you? Is this the life you signed up for? Graham was quiet for a long time. I don't know what I signed up for anymore. I just know I have 2 kids who need me to figure it out. You're doing better. They can see it. The difference, I mean. Because of you. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning neither of them was quite ready to address. Because you were ready, Naomi corrected. I just helped you remember who you still are. That evening, as Naomi was getting ready to leave, Graham stopped her at the front door. Naomi, would you like to stay for dinner tomorrow? Sunday dinner. As a family. The invitation was careful, tentative, like he was testing the waters of something deeper than professional courtesy. I would love that, Naomi said, and as she drove home, she realized that somewhere along the way, she'd stopped thinking of the Hale house as a job and started thinking of it as home, which was exactly what Diane had warned her not to do. But maybe, Naomi thought, some warnings were meant to be ignored. Sunday came with sunshine and the kind of crisp air that promised spring was getting closer. Naomi spent the morning at her apartment, but her thoughts kept drifting to the Hale house, to Graham's invitation for family dinner. She'd been invited to family dinners with other employers before. It was usually awkward and formal, a polite gesture that everyone endured but nobody enjoyed. But this felt different. This felt real. She arrived at 4 o'clock, as Graham had suggested. The house was filled with the smell of something delicious cooking, and she could hear laughter from the kitchen. She found Graham at the stove, stirring a pot of what looked like homemade tomato sauce. Lily was beside him on a step stool, carefully measuring herbs. Evan was at the table, covered in flour, attempting to roll out pasta dough. Miss Carter, Evan called out, look, I'm making dinner. The pasta dough looked more like abstract art than food, but his face was glowing with pride. That's beautiful, Evan, Naomi said. What are we making? Daddy's famous spaghetti, Lily announced. He used to make it every Sunday before I got lazy, Graham finished smoothly, catching the moment before it could turn sad. But today we're bringing it back. Naomi joined the organized chaos, helping Evan with his pasta while Graham and Lily worked on the sauce. It was messy and loud and perfect. You know, Graham said as they worked, I used to think cooking was about having everything under control, perfect measurements, perfect timing. What do you think now? Naomi asked. Graham looked around at his flour-covered son, his sauce-splattered daughter, his kitchen that looked like a food fight had broken out. Now I think it's about being together, he said. The rest is just details. When they finally sat down to eat, the pasta was slightly overcooked and the sauce was a little too salty. But nobody cared. The children told stories about school. Graham shared memories of learning to cook from his grandmother, and Naomi felt like she'd been part of this family her whole life. After dinner, they moved to Hatido, the living room. Graham had built a fire in the fireplace, something he hadn't done since before the accident. How did you light it? Lily asked, curled up on the couch beside him. Very carefully, Graham said, and with a long lighter. Can you teach me? When you're older, much older. Evan climbed onto Naomi's lap and promptly fell asleep. Lily leaned against her father's shoulder and yawned. This was the best day, Lily murmured. The best day, Graham agreed, his hand smoothing her hair. Naomi looked around the room at this peaceful scene and felt her heart do something complicated. This wasn't her family. These weren't her children. This wasn't her home. But it felt like it could be. And that was dangerous territory. After the children went to bed, Naomi helped Graham clean the kitchen. They worked in comfortable silence, moving around each other like they'd been doing this for years instead of weeks. Thank you for today, Graham said as they finished, for helping with dinner, for making it feel normal. It was normal, Naomi said. This is who your family is. You just forgot for a while. Graham leaned against the counter, studying her face. Can I ask you something? Of course. Why don't you have a family of your own? You're wonderful with children. You'd make an amazing mother. The question hit closer to home than Naomi had expected. She turned away, focusing on drying the last dish. I've never found the right person, she said carefully. My last relationship ended badly. He said I cared more about other people's children than I did about building a future with him. Was he right? Naomi considered the question. Maybe. I love what I do. I love helping families heal. Sometimes that's easier than risking your own heart. Easier but lonelier. Sometimes. They stood in the quiet kitchen, the weight of unspoken things hanging between them. Finally, Graham spoke. I'm scared, he said quietly. Of what? Of depending on you. Of my children depending on you. Sarah left because she couldn't handle the reality of what our life became. What if you decide it's too much too? Naomi turned to face him fully. I'm not Sarah. How do I know that? Because I'm still here. Because when things got hard with Lily's questions and Evan's tears and your walls, I didn't leave. I stayed and figured it out with you. Graham was quiet for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I think I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them, honest and terrifying. Naomi's heart pounded. Graham, I know it's complicated. I know it's probably wrong. You work for me. You're here for the children. I am here for the children, Naomi said softly. But somewhere along the way, I started being here for you too. Is that okay? Instead of answering with words, Naomi stepped closer. Close enough to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes. Close enough to reach out and touch his hand. It's terrifying, she said. But yes, it's okay. Graham's fingers intertwined with hers. What do we do now? We take it slow. We keep the children's needs first, and we see what happens. What about Diane? She made it clear that personal relationships are off limits. Naomi sighed. Diane is afraid of change, afraid of losing control. But this isn't her decision to make. She could make things difficult. She has a lot of influence with the agency that hired you. Then we'll deal with that when it happens. But Graham, I won't let fear make our choices for us anymore. We've all done enough of that. Graham lifted their joined hands and kissed her knuckles gently. Thank you, he said, for all of it, for seeing me as more than my wheelchair, for reminding me how to be a father, for staying when leaving would have been easier. Thank you for letting me in, for trusting me with your heart and your children. They didn't kiss that night. It felt too soon, too fragile, but they held hands in the quiet kitchen and talked until late about hopes and fears and the careful possibility of building something beautiful together. When Naomi finally left, Graham sat in the living room for a long time, staring at the dying embers in the fireplace. For the first time since his accident, he felt hopeful about the future. Upstairs, Lily lay in bed, wide awake. She'd heard voices from the kitchen, heard the gentle tone that meant something important was happening. She'd seen the way her daddy looked at Miss Carter, the way Miss Carter looked back. And for the first time since her mother left, Lily dared to hope that maybe, just maybe, their family was going to be okay. The next week passed in a warm blur of routine and small moments. Graham continued joining them for breakfast and dinner. He read bedtime stories 3 nights in a row. He helped with homework and listened to the children's chatter about school. But underneath the growing normalcy, something else was building. Glances that lasted too long, hands that brushed while passing dishes, conversations that went deeper than professional courtesy. Naomi found herself arriving early just to have a few quiet moments with Graham before the children woke up. Graham found excuses to linger in whatever room Naomi was in. They were careful not to display any affection in front of Lily and Evan. Their relationship was too new, too uncertain. But in stolen moments, they were beginning to explore what it might mean to love each other. On Wednesday evening, after the children were asleep, they sat together in Graham's study. Naomi was reading while Graham worked on his laptop. It was domestic and peaceful, and felt like a glimpse of what a shared life might look like. I have to travel next month, Graham said suddenly. Business trip to Chicago, 3 days. Naomi looked up from her book. The children will miss you. Will you? The question was quiet, but loaded. Yes, Naomi said simply. I will. Graham closed his laptop. Come with me. Graham, I can't. The children need. Bring them. We could make it a family trip. See the museums, stay in a nice hotel. The kids would love it. A family trip, Naomi repeated, testing the words. If that's what this is, a family. Naomi's heart did that complicated thing again. Is that what you want? For this to be a family? More than anything. But I need to know you want it too. Really want it. Not just the good parts, but all of it. The hard days and the medical appointments and the people who will stare and the aunt who doesn't approve. Naomi set down her book and moved to his wheelchair, kneeling beside it so they were at eye level. I want all of it, she said firmly. The beautiful parts and the difficult parts and everything in between. I want to help Lily with homework and teach Evan to ride a bike and hold your hand during the hard days. What about the people who will say you're only with me for my money? What about them? What about the people who will say I'm taking advantage of your kindness? Graham, Naomi took his face in her hands. What about the people who will see a man who loves his children and a woman who loves them too and think that's exactly how families are supposed to work? Graham leaned into her touch. When did you get so wise? When I fell in love with a man brave enough to risk his heart again. This time, they did kiss. Soft and careful and full of promise, it tasted like hope and new beginnings. When they broke apart, Graham rested his forehead against hers. So Chicago? He asked. Chicago, Naomi agreed, as a family. And in the quiet study, with the fire crackling in the background, they began planning their first trip together. Not as employer and employee, but as something much more precious and infinitely more complicated. A family choosing each other, one day at a time. But even as they made plans and shared quiet laughter, neither of them saw the shadow that passed by the window. Diane Hale had seen enough to confirm her worst fears. The nanny was no longer just the nanny, and that, Diane decided, was something that needed to be stopped. The morning started like any other. Naomi arrived at 7:30 to find Graham already in the kitchen, making coffee. They shared a quiet smile, the kind of look that held promises and secrets. Good morning, he said softly. Good morning. Naomi moved around the kitchen, preparing breakfast. Their movements were synchronized now, like a dance they'd been practicing for months instead of weeks. The kids are excited about Chicago, Graham said, watching her work. Evan asked if he could bring his elephant on the plane. Of course he can. What about Lily? She's making a list of all the museums she wants to see. I think she has 17 so far. Naomi laughed. We'll have to pace ourselves. We? Graham smiled at the word. I like the sound of that. Their fingers brushed as she handed him his coffee cup. Such a small touch, but it sent warmth through both of them. Upstairs, they could hear the children getting ready for school, Lily's voice calling out that she couldn't find her math homework, Evan singing a song about dinosaurs at the top of his lungs, normal family chaos, beautiful family chaos. I should go help them, Naomi said, but before she could move away, Graham caught her hand. Naomi, thank you for all of this, for making us feel like a real family again. You were always a real family. You just needed time to remember. Graham lifted her hand to his lips and kissed her palm gently. I love you. I love you too. It was only the second time they'd said the words, and they still felt new and precious. The morning routine went smoothly. Breakfast without drama, backpacks packed, shoes found and tied. At the school drop-off, Lily gave both Naomi and Graham hugs goodbye. Have a good day at work, Daddy, she said. Have a good day at home, Miss Carter, Evan added, not to be outdone. They were a team now, a unit, and everyone could see it. Back at the house, Naomi and Graham spent a quiet hour planning the Chicago trip, booking hotel rooms, researching restaurants, making lists of activities the children would enjoy. I can't remember the last time I looked forward to traveling, Graham said. Why not? Before the accident, travel was always about work, conference rooms and business dinners and airports. After the accident, it just seemed impossible. Too many logistics, Too many things that could go wrong. And now? Graham smiled. Now it feels like an adventure, like we're going to make memories instead of just getting through another obligation. They were interrupted by the sound of the front door opening. Mara's voice called out from the hallway. "Mr. Hale? Mrs. Hale is here to see you." Graham's face went pale. "Diane? I wasn't expecting her." "Should I go?" Naomi asked quietly. "No, stay, please." Diane appeared in the kitchen doorway moments later, impeccably dressed as always, but with an expression colder than Naomi had ever seen. "Graham, Miss Carter." Her voice could have frozen water. "I need to speak with you both." "What about?" Graham asked, though his tone suggested he already knew this wasn't going to be pleasant. "About the boundaries that have clearly been crossed in this household." Naomi felt her stomach drop. "Mrs. Hale, if this is about... It's about a professional relationship that has become decidedly unprofessional," Diane cut her off. "I saw you last night, Graham, through the window, kissing the help." The words, "the help," landed like a slap. Naomi felt heat rise in her cheeks, but she kept her expression calm. "Naomi is not the help," Graham said firmly. She's the employee you're paying to watch your children, nothing more." "That's not true anymore," Graham said. "And you know it." Diane laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Oh, Graham, you always were too trusting, too willing to see the best in people. What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're being taken advantage of. You're a wealthy man, vulnerable and alone, with 2 children who need stability. You're exactly the kind of target that women like her look for." The accusation hung in the air like poison. Naomi felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "Diane!" Graham's voice was warning. "It's a classic scheme, Graham. Get close to the children, make herself indispensable, seduce the grieving father. Before you know it, she'll be pushing for marriage and access to your bank accounts." "Stop." Naomi's voice was quiet but firm. "Just stop." "The truth is uncomfortable, isn't it?" Diane turned to face her fully. "How long have you been planning this, Miss Carter? Did you research Graham before you took the job? Did you know about his money, his vulnerability?" "No," Naomi said, her voice shaking with anger now. "I took this job because your nephew's children needed help, because they were hurting and scared and needed someone who would stay." "How convenient. And falling in love with their wealthy father was just a happy accident?" "Enough." Graham's voice cut through the tension. "Diane, you're out of line. I'm protecting this family. Someone has to." "From what? From happiness? From love? From a gold digger who's manipulating your emotions and your children's affection for her own gain." The words hit their target. Naomi saw the doubt flicker across Graham's face, quick but unmistakable. After everything they'd shared, everything they'd built, some part of him was wondering if Diane was right. That doubt hurt more than all of Diane's accusations combined. "I think I should go," Naomi said quietly. "No," Graham said quickly. "Don't go. Diane, you need to leave, now." "I'm not finished." "Yes, you are." Graham's voice was steel. "You've said enough." But Diane wasn't done. She pulled out her phone and showed them something on the screen. It was a photo of Naomi and Graham in his study the night before, kissing by the firelight. "I have pictures, Graham. Pictures of your nanny behaving inappropriately in your home. What do you think the agency will say when they see these? What do you think a judge would say if Sarah decided to fight for custody?" The threat was clear and effective. Graham's face went white. "You took pictures of us? In my own home?" "I was protecting the children's interests, making sure they're in a safe environment." "Get out." Graham's voice was quiet but deadly. "Get out of my house. Graham, think about what you're doing. Think about your children. Do you really want to risk their stability for a woman you've known for a few weeks?" And there it was. The seed of doubt that Diane had been planting all along. The fear that had kept Graham locked away from love for so long. What if she was right? What if he was being a fool? Naomi saw the exact moment when that doubt took hold, saw Graham's expression change from anger to uncertainty to fear. "Maybe," Graham's voice was barely a whisper, "maybe we should talk about this more carefully." The words felt like a knife in Naomi's chest. After everything they'd shared, everything they'd built, he was willing to consider that she was lying, that she was using him. "There's nothing to talk about," Naomi said, her voice steady despite the pain ripping through her chest. "Mrs. Hale has made her position very clear, and apparently so have you." "Naomi, that's not what I—" "It's exactly what you meant." Naomi looked at him with eyes full of hurt and disappointment. "After everything we've been through, you're willing to believe I'm some kind of con artist." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." Diane watched the exchange with satisfaction. "I think it would be best if Miss Carter found other employment. I can have the agency send someone else by tomorrow." "No," Graham said quickly. "The children need consistency. They need protection from people who would use their affection for personal gain," Diane interrupted. Naomi had heard enough. She walked to the counter and picked up her purse, her movements calm and controlled despite the storm raging inside her. "I'll finish out the week," she said quietly. "Give the children time to adjust to someone new. But after that, I'm done." "Naomi, please don't." She held up a hand to stop him. "Don't make this harder than it already is." She walked toward the door, then turned back one last time. "For what it's worth, Graham, I never wanted your money. I just wanted your heart, and I thought I had it." The pain in her voice was unmistakable. Real. Honest. And in that moment, Graham realized he'd made a terrible mistake. But by then, Naomi was already walking away. The rest of the day passed in a haze of misery. Graham sat in his study, staring at nothing, while Diane lectured him about making smart choices and protecting his assets. When it was time to pick up the children from school, he went himself, leaving Diane to finally go home with her mission accomplished. Lily and Evan climbed into the car, chattering about their day. But their excitement faded quickly when they realized Naomi wasn't there. "Where's Miss Carter?" Lily asked. She had some things to take care of," Graham said weakly. "Is she okay?" Evan's voice was small and worried. "She's fine. She'll be here tomorrow." But even as he said it, Graham wasn't sure it was true. That evening, Graham attempted to handle the bedtime routine alone. It was a disaster. Evan cried because he couldn't find his favorite pajamas. Lily had a meltdown about a math problem she didn't understand. Both children asked repeatedly where Miss Carter was and why she wasn't there to read stories. "Is Miss Carter leaving?" Lily asked as Graham finally managed to tuck her into bed. The question hit him like a punch to the gut, because the honest answer was yes, and it was his fault. "I don't know, sweetheart." "But you love her, right? And she loves us?" "It's complicated." Lily sat up in bed, her young face serious. "Adults always say things are complicated when they're scared to tell the truth. Out of the mouths of babes." "You're right," Graham said softly. "I do love her. Very much." "Then why isn't she here?" How could he explain to his 8-year-old daughter that he'd let fear and doubt destroy the best thing that had happened to their family in months? "Sometimes adults make mistakes," he said finally. "Big mistakes. Can you fix it?" "I don't know. Maybe." Lily lay back down, but her eyes stayed serious. "You should try, Daddy. Miss Carter makes you happy. And when you're happy, Evan and I are happy too." After the children finally fell asleep, Graham sat alone in the dark living room, thinking about Lily's words, thinking about the pain in Naomi's eyes when she'd walked away, thinking about how empty the house felt without her laughter filling it. Diane had been wrong, completely wrong. Naomi had never shown any interest in his money. She'd never asked for expensive gifts or pushed for access to his accounts. All she'd ever wanted was to help his children heal, to help him heal. And instead of trusting what he knew in his heart to be true, he'd let old fears and Diane's manipulation make him doubt the most honest person he'd ever met. He'd thrown away love because he was afraid of being hurt again. But now, sitting in the silence of his house, Graham realized he was more hurt by his own choices than he'd ever been by anyone else's. The next morning, Naomi arrived at her usual time, but everything was different. She was polite but distant, professional but cold. She made breakfast, helped the children get ready for school, and drove them to their classrooms, but the warmth was gone. She was protecting herself, and Graham couldn't blame her. "Can we talk?" he asked when she returned from the school drop-off. "I think we said everything we needed to say yesterday." "No, we didn't. I need to explain." "There's nothing to explain. You made your choice." "I made a mistake." Naomi looked at him with tired eyes. Maybe. But the fact that you could make that mistake tells me everything I need to know. What do you mean? It means that somewhere deep down, you still think I'm the kind of person who would use your children to get to your money. After everything we've shared, everything we've built, you still don't really trust me. The words hit home because they were true. In that moment of doubt, he'd believed the worst instead of the best, and that said something about him that he didn't like. I was scared, he said quietly. I know. But love isn't supposed to be about fear, Graham. It's supposed to be about trust, about believing in each other even when other people try to tear you apart. I do believe in you. Not enough. Not when it mattered. Graham felt something break inside his chest. So that's it? We're done? Naomi was quiet for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was soft but final. I can't build a life with someone who doesn't trust me, and I can't ask Lily and Evan to love someone who might throw me away the next time someone whispers in your ear. They already love you. I know, and that's why this is so hard. The pain in her voice was terrible to hear, but what was worse was the resignation. She'd given up on them, on him, and Graham couldn't figure out how to change her mind. That afternoon, Naomi told the children she wouldn't be working for their family much longer. But why? Evan asked, his bottom lip trembling. Sometimes grown-ups have to make difficult choices, Naomi said gently. But that doesn't mean I don't love you. I will always love you both. Lily stared at her with eyes too old for her age. Is this because Daddy got scared again? The question broke Naomi's heart. This little girl understood too much about adult fears and failures. Your daddy loves you very much, Naomi said instead of answering directly, and whoever takes care of you next will love you too. But even as she said it, Naomi's heart was breaking. She'd fallen in love with these children as much as she'd fallen in love with their father. Leaving them felt like cutting off a piece of her soul. That evening, Graham tried one more time. Stay, he said simply as she gathered her things. Please, I'll fire Diane if I have to. I'll do whatever it takes. Naomi looked at him with sad eyes. It's not about Diane, Graham. It's about the fact that when push came to shove, you chose fear over love. You chose doubt over trust. I chose wrong. I know that now. But you still chose. And that tells me that no matter what I do, no matter how much I love you and the children, there will always be a part of you waiting for me to leave, expecting me to hurt you. Graham couldn't deny it because it was true. I can change, he said desperately. Maybe, but I can't wait around to find out. I've been left too many times by people who said they loved me but didn't trust me enough to fight for us. She walked to the door, then turned back one last time. I need you to know something, she said. Every moment we shared was real. Every laugh, every conversation, every kiss. I wasn't acting or scheming or pretending. I was just a woman falling in love with a man and his children. I know that now. I hope you do. Because Lily and Evan deserve a father who believes in love instead of fearing it. And someday, when you meet someone else, I hope you'll remember that trust is something you choose, not something you earn. And then she was gone, leaving Graham alone with his regrets and his children's tears and the echo of what might have been. Outside, Naomi sat in her car for a long time before starting the engine. She could see the house through the windshield, warm lights glowing in the windows. She could imagine Lily and Evan inside, asking their father why Miss Carter had to go away. She'd meant every word she'd said to Graham. Trust was a choice, and he'd chosen to trust his fears instead of her love. But as she drove away from the house that had become home, from the children who had become her heart, and from the man who had taught her to believe in love again, Naomi couldn't help but wonder if she was making the right choice too. Maybe love was supposed to be about forgiveness as much as trust. Maybe she was giving up too easily. But she was tired of fighting for people who didn't fight back for her. Tired of loving people who couldn't love her enough to choose her when it mattered. So she drove home to her empty apartment and tried to convince herself that leaving was the right thing to do, even though it felt like the hardest thing she'd ever done. Back at the house, Graham sat in his wheelchair in the dark living room, listening to his children cry themselves to sleep upstairs. He'd had love in his hands. Real, honest, beautiful love. And he'd thrown it away because he was too afraid to trust it. Now he had to live with that choice. and figure out how to explain to his children why the woman they loved had to leave. It was going to be the hardest conversation of his life, but first he had to have an even harder conversation with himself about fear and trust and the price of letting doubt win over love. The next few days were the longest of Graham's life. The new nanny arrived on Thursday morning. Her name was Mrs. Henderson, and she was everything Diane had probably requested: older, stern, professional to a fault. She had excellent references and 20 years of experience. She was also nothing like Naomi. Mrs. Henderson didn't laugh at Evan's silly jokes. She didn't help Lily arrange her rock collection or listen to her stories about school friends. She kept the children fed and clean and on schedule, but there was no warmth, no joy, no love in any of it. "Where's Miss Carter?" Evan asked every morning. "Miss Carter isn't coming back," Mrs. Henderson would reply. "I'm your nanny now." But I don't want you," Lily said on Friday afternoon, her voice thick with tears. "I want Miss Carter." "Well, we don't always get what we want," Mrs. Henderson said briskly. "That's life." Graham listened to this exchange from his study and felt his heart break a little more. This was what his fear had bought them, this cold efficiency instead of warm love. On Friday evening, after Mrs. Henderson had gone home, Graham found both children in Lily's room. Evan was curled up on her bed, crying softly into his elephant. Lily was staring out the window with dry eyes that looked far too old. "Hey," Graham said softly, wheeling into the room. "What's going on?" "Miss Carter isn't coming back, is she?" Lily asked without turning around. Graham's throat felt tight. "No, sweetheart, she's not." "Because of what Aunt Diane said?" Graham blinked in surprise. "You heard that? We heard you and Miss Carter fighting. Well, not fighting exactly, but talking in angry voices. And then Aunt Diane was here. And then Miss Carter was sad." Of course they'd heard. Children always knew more than adults gave them credit for. "It's complicated," Graham started. "No, it's not." Lily turned to face him, and her expression was fierce. "You got scared, just like you got scared after the accident. You stopped believing in good things because you're afraid they'll go away." The truth from an 8-year-old's mouth hit harder than any adult's accusation. "Maybe you're right," Graham admitted. "I am right. And now Miss Carter is gone, and Evan cries every night, and you look sad all the time, and Mrs. Henderson makes terrible pancakes." Despite everything, Graham almost smiled. "Her pancakes are pretty bad." "Miss Carter made good pancakes. Miss Carter made everything better." Lily's voice got smaller. "Why did you let her go, Daddy?" How could he explain to his daughter that he'd been so afraid of being hurt that he'd hurt himself instead? "Because I made a mistake," he said finally. "A really big mistake." "Can you fix it?" It was the same question she'd asked before, but now Graham wasn't sure of the answer. "I don't know, baby. I hurt Miss Carter's feelings really badly. She might not want to come back." "But did you tell her you're sorry?" "Not really. Not the way I should have." Lily climbed down from her bed and came to stand beside his wheelchair. "Then you should tell her, really tell her, and maybe bring flowers. Mommy used to like flowers when she was sad." Graham's heart ached at the mention of Sarah. Lily barely talked about her mother anymore. "Do you miss Mommy?" he asked gently. Lily considered this seriously. "Sometimes, but not like I miss Miss Carter. Mommy left because she didn't want to stay. Miss Carter left because you made her go away." The distinction was important and painful. "You're right," Graham said. "I did make her go away, and I don't know if I can fix it." "You have to try," Evan said suddenly. He'd been so quiet, Graham had almost forgotten he was there. "Miss Carter said we should always try to fix things when we break them." Graham looked at his two children, both staring at him with eyes full of hope and hurt and love. They were right. He had to try. Even if Naomi refused to see him, even if she couldn't forgive him, he owed her a real apology. He owed her the truth about what she'd meant to him, to all of them. "Okay," he said. "I'll try to fix it. I can't promise it will work, but I'll try." Lily threw her arms around his neck. "Thank you, Daddy." "And if she comes back," Evan added seriously, "don't get scared again. Love is better than being scared." Out of the mouths of babes. That night, after the children were finally asleep, Graham sat in his study and tried to figure out how to undo the biggest mistake of his life. He could call Naomi, but, what would he say? Sorry wasn't enough for what he'd done. He could go to her apartment, but showing up unannounced felt presumptuous after everything that had happened. He could write her a letter, tell her everything he should have said when it mattered, explain about his fears and his failures, and how much he loved her. But words felt inadequate for the size of his regret. Finally, Graham picked up his phone and called the one person who might be able to help him. Mara, it's Graham. I need a favor. Saturday morning came gray and drizzly. Naomi had spent the week trying to get back to her normal routine, but nothing felt normal anymore. She'd registered with the agency again, looking for a new placement. But every family she met seemed wrong somehow. The parents were too demanding, or the children were too withdrawn, or the house was too quiet. Nothing measured up to the warmth and chaos and love she'd found at the Hale house. She was folding laundry in her apartment when her doorbell rang. She wasn't expecting anyone, and for a wild moment, her heart hoped it might be Graham. But when she opened the door, she found Mara standing in the hallway, holding a large envelope. Mara, what are you doing here? Mr. Hale asked me to bring you this, Mara said, holding out the envelope. He wanted to deliver it himself, but he thought you might not want to see him. He was right. Naomi's heart wasn't ready to handle seeing Graham's face yet. What is it? I don't know. He didn't tell me. But Mara hesitated. He looks terrible, Naomi. He hasn't eaten properly all week. The children cry every day, and yesterday I caught him watching those old videos of the kids again, the ones from before the accident. The information hit Naomi harder than she expected. She'd been so focused on her own pain that she hadn't really thought about how the separation was affecting him and the children. The new nanny isn't working out, Mara continued. She's competent, but she's not you. She doesn't understand what this family needs. That's not my problem anymore, Naomi said, but her voice lacked conviction. Isn't it? You love those children, and you love Graham despite what happened. Love isn't enough sometimes. Sometimes it's the only thing that's enough. Mara handed her the envelope and turned to go. At the elevator, she turned back. Whatever he wrote in there, it comes from his heart. He's not perfect, Naomi, but he's trying to learn how to choose love over fear. Maybe that's worth something. After Mara left, Naomi sat on her couch and stared at the envelope for a long time. Part of her wanted to throw it away without reading it, to protect herself from more hurt. But curiosity and love won out over caution. Inside the envelope were 3 things. The first was a letter, handwritten in Graham's careful script. The second was a drawing from Evan showing their family at the museum. 4 stick figures holding hands with "Miss Carter, please come home," written in careful 5-year-old letters. The third was a photo, one she'd never seen before. It showed her sitting on the floor of the playroom, reading to Lily and Evan. The children were leaning against her, completely absorbed in the story. Her face was soft with love and contentment. On the back in Lily's handwriting were the words, "Our family when everyone was happy." Naomi's vision blurred with tears as she unfolded Graham's letter. Dear Naomi, it began, I don't know if you'll read this, but I have to try to tell you what I should have said when it mattered. You were right about everything, about trust being a choice, about me choosing fear over love, about me not believing in you when I should have. I let my past control my present, and in doing so, I destroyed my future, our future. I know what you're thinking, that this is just guilt talking, or that I'm only sorry because I lost something good. But it's more than that. You changed my life, Naomi. Not just because you helped my children heal, though you did that beautifully. You changed my life because you showed me what love could look like after loss. Before you came, I thought love was something that happened to other people, something I'd had once and lost and would never get back. You taught me that love isn't something you lose or find. It's something you choose, every day in 1,000 small ways. You chose to love Lily and Evan even when they were difficult and sad. You chose to love me even when I was broken and afraid. You chose our family before we even knew we were a family. And when you needed me to choose you back, I failed. I failed because I let old wounds make me suspicious of new joy. I failed because I listened to fear instead of love. I failed because I forgot that trust is a gift you give someone, not something they have to earn. But mostly, I failed because I forgot that you're not Sarah. You're not someone who leaves when things get hard. You're someone who stays and fights and makes broken things whole again. The children ask about you every day. They want to know when you're coming home, because that's what our house was with you, home. Now it's just a house again, beautiful but empty, clean but cold. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't know if you can trust me not to hurt you again. But I need you to know that losing you taught me something important. Love without trust isn't really love at all. It's just need dressed up in pretty words. I love you, Naomi. Not because you're convenient or because you're good with my children, though you are. I love you because you're brave and kind and honest. Because you see the best in people even when they can't see it in themselves. Because you make the world a little bit better just by being in it. If you can find it in your heart to give us another chance, I promise to choose love over fear. I promise to choose trust over doubt. I promise to choose you every day for as long as you'll have me. But if you can't, I understand. And I want you to know that loving you, even for such a short time, was the best thing that happened to me since my children were born. You gave me back my family. You gave me back my heart. You gave me back hope. That's a gift I'll treasure forever, whether you come back or not. All my love, Graham P.S. The children wanted me to tell you that Mrs. Henderson makes terrible pancakes and doesn't know any good bedtime stories. They're not wrong. By the time Naomi finished reading, she was crying so hard she could barely see. This was the apology she'd needed, raw and honest and full of the understanding that had been missing before. Graham finally got it. He understood what he'd done wrong and why it had hurt so much. More importantly, he understood what love really meant. The question was understanding enough? Could she risk her heart again with a man who'd already broken it once? Could she trust that he really had learned to choose love over fear? Looking at Evan's drawing and Lily's photo and Graham's heartfelt letter, Naomi realized that the answer wasn't about trust or risk or fear. It was about love. And love, real love, was always worth fighting for, even when it scared you, even when it might hurt, even when you'd been hurt before. Graham was right. Trust was a choice, and so was forgiveness. It was time to choose love. All that was left now was figuring out how to go home. Naomi sat with Graham's letter in her hands for over an hour, reading it again and again. Each time, she discovered something new. A turn of phrase that showed how deeply he understood his mistake. A promise that felt real and solid. But it was Evan's drawing that finally made her decision for her. 4 stick figures holding hands. A family when everyone was happy. That's what they had been. That's what they could be again. If she was brave enough to try. Naomi looked at her phone. It was Saturday afternoon. The children would be home, probably asking Mrs. Henderson to make pancakes and getting disappointed when they turned out flat and tasteless. She could call first, give Graham warning that she was coming over, but some conversations were too important for phone calls. Some conversations required looking into someone's eyes and seeing the truth there. Naomi grabbed her keys and headed for the door. The Hale house looked the same from the outside, but something felt different as Naomi stood on the front porch. Maybe it was because she wasn't arriving as an employee this time. She was arriving as a woman in love, ready to fight for her family. Her family. Because that's what they were, whether there were papers to prove it or not. She rang the doorbell instead of using her key. That life was over. If there was going to be a new life, it needed to start fresh. Through the glass panels beside the door, she could see a figure approaching. Mrs. Henderson, walking with her brisk, efficient stride. The door opened, and Mrs. Henderson's eyes widened in surprise. "Miss Carter, we weren't expecting you. Is Mr. Hale home? He's in his study, but I should warn you he's not in a good mood. He's been quite difficult all week." Naomi almost smiled. Graham being difficult probably meant he was asking Mrs. Henderson to do things the way Naomi used to do them. Making pancakes with love instead of just ingredients. reading bedtime stories with different voices instead of just reading words. Thank you. I'll find him myself. Naomi walked through the house she'd come to know so well, past the kitchen where they had made breakfast together every morning, past the living room where Graham had finally started reading to his children again. The study door was open. Graham sat at his desk staring at his computer screen, but Naomi could tell he wasn't really working. His shoulders were slumped with exhaustion and sadness. She knocked softly on the door frame. Graham looked up, and the expression that crossed his face was like watching the sun come out after days of rain. Hope and joy and disbelief all mixed together. Naomi. Her name came out like a prayer. Hello, Graham. You got my letter. I did. She stepped into the room but stayed near the door, not quite ready to get too close. It was beautiful and honest. But letters are just words. I needed to see you, to look in your eyes and know if you really meant what you wrote. Graham wheeled his chair away from the desk to face her fully. I meant every word. I love you, Naomi. I trust you, and I'm sorry I took so long to figure out the difference. There it was, in his voice, in his eyes, in the way he held himself, the truth she'd been hoping to find. I love you too, she said softly. I never stopped. Then why do you look like you're about to run away? It was a fair question. Naomi was still standing by the door like she might need to escape at any moment. Because I'm scared, she admitted. I'm scared that the next time someone challenges our relationship, you'll doubt me again. Graham nodded slowly. I understand. And I can't promise that I'll never be afraid again. Fear's part of loving someone, isn't it? Being afraid of losing them? But there's a difference between being afraid and acting on that fear. Between worrying about someone and not trusting them. You're right. And I promise you, if anyone ever tries to come between us again, I won't listen. Not to Diane, not to anyone. Because I know who you are now. Really know. How can you be sure? Graham was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. Because I've spent the last week without you. And I realized that being afraid of losing you was nothing, compared to actually losing you. I'd rather risk everything for love than live safely without it. The words hit Naomi like a warm wave. This was what she'd needed to hear. Not just an apology, but proof that he'd learned something fundamental about what mattered most. What about Diane? Naomi asked. She won't be happy if I come back. Diane doesn't get a vote anymore. This is my family, my home, my choice, and I choose you. She could still cause problems, make threats. Let her try. I have a good lawyer, and I have the truth. More importantly, I have 2 children who love you and want you here. That matters more than anything Diane could say or do. Footsteps in the hallway interrupted them, small, running footsteps. Daddy, Mrs. Henderson says. Lily stopped in the doorway, her mouth falling open. Miss Carter. Behind her, Evan appeared, clutching his elephant. Miss Carter, he yelled, and launched himself across the room. Naomi caught him in a hug, breathing in his little boy's smell of soap and crayons and pure happiness. I missed you so much, Evan whispered against her neck. I missed you too, sweet boy. Lily approached more cautiously, her eyes searching Naomi's face. Are you coming home? She asked quietly. Do you want me to? More than anything? Naomi looked from Lily to Evan to Graham, her family, broken and imperfect and absolutely right. Then I'm coming home. The celebration was immediate and chaotic. Both children talked over each other, telling Naomi everything that had happened during the week she'd been gone. How Mrs. Henderson's pancakes were too thin, and her stories were boring. How Daddy had been sad and distracted. How they'd made drawings for her every day, hoping she would come back. We never stopped believing you'd come home, Lily said seriously. Even when Daddy got scared, we knew you loved us too much to stay away forever. You were right, Naomi said, pulling both children close. Love always finds a way home. From the hallway came the sound of Mrs. Henderson's disapproving voice. Mr. Hale, what exactly is going on? The children are being quite disruptive. Graham wheeled to the study doorway. Mrs. Henderson, thank you for your service this week, but we won't be needing you anymore. I'll have Mara send you a check for the full week plus a bonus. Mrs. Henderson's eyebrows rose. I see. Well, I hope you know what you're doing. I do, Graham said firmly. For the first time in a long time, I know exactly what I'm doing." After Mrs. Henderson left, the four of them gathered in the kitchen. It felt like coming home in the most literal sense. Naomi moved around the space automatically, starting dinner preparations while the children chattered and Graham watched with contentment written all over his face. "Are you really staying?" Evan asked for the third time. "I'm really staying," Naomi confirmed, "as long as you'll have me." "Forever," Lily said decisively. "We want you forever." "Forever is a long time," Naomi said gently. "But I promise you this. I will never leave because things get difficult. If I ever have to go away, it will only be because something changes that we all understand together. No more surprises, no more leaving without explanations." It was a careful promise, but an honest one. Life was unpredictable, but love didn't have to be. "What about you and Daddy?" Lily asked with 8-year-old directness. "Are you going to get married and stuff?" Naomi felt her cheeks heat up. "Well, that's something your daddy and I would need to talk about." "We don't have to rush," Graham said, but his eyes were warm. "We have all the time in the world to figure out what comes next." "But you do love each other, right?" Evan pressed. "Yes," Naomi said without hesitation. "We do love each other." "Good," Lily said with satisfaction. "Then everything is perfect." Not perfect, Naomi thought, but real and honest and full of possibility. That evening, they fell back into their old routines like no time had passed at all. Dinner around the kitchen table with everyone talking over each other. Baths and bedtime stories and tucking in. But there were new elements, too. Graham stayed for the entire bedtime routine instead of disappearing to his study. He helped read stories and answered Evan's questions about why the moon changed shapes. "This is how it's supposed to be," Lily said as Naomi tucked her in. "All of us together." "Yes, it is." "Miss Carter, will you always love us, even if we're not perfect?" The question broke Naomi's heart a little. This little girl had learned too young that love could be conditional. "I will always love you," Naomi said firmly. "When you're happy and when you're sad, when you're good and when you make mistakes. That's what real love means. It doesn't go away." After the children were asleep, Naomi and Graham sat together in the living room. The fire crackled softly, and the house felt peaceful in a way it hadn't for months. "I have something for you," Graham said quietly. He reached into his wheelchair's side pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Naomi's heart stopped. "Graham, it's not what you think. Not yet." He opened the box to reveal a simple gold chain with a small pendant in the shape of a house. "I bought this months ago before everything went wrong. I wanted to give you something that showed how much you meant to us, how you'd made this house feel like home. It's beautiful." The pendant opens. Graham showed her the tiny clasp. Inside was a picture of the four of them from the museum trip, all smiling at the camera. "We're a family in this picture," Graham said softly, "and I want us to be a family for real. Not someday, not eventually. Now." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to adopt you into this family officially. I want your name on the emergency contact forms at school. I want you to have legal rights to make decisions for Lily and Evan if something happens to me. I want us to be a family in every way that matters." It wasn't a marriage proposal, but it was something equally important. It was a promise of belonging, of permanence, of being chosen. "And someday," Graham continued, "when we're both ready, I hope you'll let me make it even more official. But for now, this feels like the right first step." Naomi touched the pendant gently. "A family. A family. I would love that." Graham fastened the chain around her neck, his fingers gentle at her nape. "Welcome home, Naomi. It's good to be home." They kissed then, soft and sweet and full of promises for the future. Not perfect people, but people committed to choosing love over fear, trust over doubt, hope over disappointment. 6 months later, Naomi stood in the kitchen of what was now officially her home too, making Saturday morning pancakes. Through the window, she could see Graham in the garden with Evan, teaching him to plant tomatoes. Lily was at the kitchen table, working on a school project about families. "What are you writing?" Naomi asked, glancing over Lily's shoulder. "About how families come in all different shapes. Some families are born, and some families are chosen, and some families are both." "That's very wise." "Miss Carter?" Lily still called her that sometimes, though she'd started calling her Naomi more often. Are you happy? Naomi looked around the kitchen, warm with morning light and full of the sounds of her family starting their day. At the drawings stuck to the refrigerator and the coffee cups waiting for Graham's return, and the sense of belonging that filled every corner. I'm very happy, she said. Good. Because we were broken before you came, and now we're not broken anymore. You were never broken, sweetheart. You were just hurt for a while. There's a difference. What's the difference? Broken things can't be fixed, but hurt things can heal. Lily considered this seriously. So we're healed now? We're healing. Every day, a little bit more. Outside, she heard Graham's laughter mixing with Evan's giggles, the sound of a father who'd remembered how to be present, how to choose joy over fear. Miss Carter, Naomi? Yes? I love you. I love you too, Lily. Forever and always. Forever and always, Lily repeated with satisfaction. And in that moment, surrounded by the family she'd been hired to help but had ended up healing instead, the family that had healed her right back, Naomi knew that sometimes the best things in life weren't planned. Sometimes they were just chosen. One day, one moment, one act of love at a time. The end. Author's note: love stories aren't just about finding the right person, they're about becoming the right person. About learning that trust is a choice, not a feeling. About discovering that families can be built as well as born, and that healing happens when we're brave enough to let people love us, even when we're scared. Graham and Naomi's story reminds us that everyone deserves a second chance at love, and sometimes the second chance is even better than the first because it comes with wisdom, honesty, and the knowledge that the best things in life are worth fighting for. May we all be brave enough to choose love over fear, trust over doubt, and hope over disappointment. And may we all find families, chosen or born, that make us feel like we've finally come home. But the story didn't end there. 2 weeks after Naomi's return, Diane made one final attempt to regain control of the situation. She arrived unannounced on a Tuesday evening, just as the family was finishing dinner. Graham, she said, sweeping into the kitchen without waiting for an invitation, we need to discuss this situation. There's no situation to discuss, Graham replied calmly, not moving from his place at the table. Naomi is part of our family now. This is ridiculous. You're making a fool of yourself over the help. Mrs. Hale, Naomi said quietly, standing up from her chair. I understand your concerns. You love your nephew and want to protect him. But I need you to understand something too. Diane's eyes flashed. I don't need to understand anything from you. Yes, you do, because I'm not going anywhere, and we need to find a way to coexist for the children's sake. The children would be fine without you. Would they? Naomi gestured to Lily and Evan, who were sitting at the table watching the confrontation with wide eyes. Look at them, Mrs. Hale. Really look at them. Diane glanced at the children and seemed to notice for the first time how different they looked. Lily sat straighter, her face bright with confidence instead of shadowed with worry. Evan was chattering happily to his elephant, secure in the knowledge that the adults around him were solid and present. They're happy, Naomi continued. For the first time since their mother left, they're genuinely happy. They feel safe and loved and secure. Is that really something you want to destroy? Their security shouldn't depend on you. You're right, it shouldn't. It should depend on their father. And look at him. Diane turned to study Graham, and what she saw there made her pause. The exhaustion and depression that had marked his features for months were gone. He looked present, engaged, alive in a way he hadn't since before the accident. He's healing too, Naomi said gently. We're all healing together. That's what families do. You're not family, Diane said, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. Maybe not by blood, but by choice. And sometimes that's even stronger. Graham wheeled his chair closer to the table. Aunt Diane, I need you to hear something. For the past 6 months, you've been trying to protect me from getting hurt. But the only thing that's really hurt me was letting my fear keep me from love. Graham, I'm not finished. Naomi didn't take advantage of me. She didn't manipulate me or the children. She loved us when we were unlovable and stayed when it would have been easier to leave. That's not opportunism. That's grace. Diane was quiet for a long moment, looking around the table at the family before her. Finally, her shoulders sagged a little. I was so afraid, she said quietly. After Sarah left, after you withdrew from everyone, I was terrified that you'd disappear completely, that I'd lose you the way we lost your parents. It was the first honest thing Diane had said in months. You're not going to lose me, Graham said gently. But you can't control my life to keep me safe. That's not protection. It's imprisonment. I just wanted to keep the family together. We are keeping the family together. We're just expanding it a little. Diane looked at Naomi for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. I owe you an apology, she said stiffly. I was unkind and unfair. Thank you, Naomi replied. That means a lot. I still think this is happening very fast. Maybe. But sometimes the right things happen quickly. And if you hurt him, I won't, Naomi said firmly. But if I ever do, accidentally or otherwise, you'll be the first person I call to help put him back together, because that's what family does. Something shifted in Diane's expression. Family. Family. From that night forward, Diane was never warm exactly, but she was civil. She stopped trying to undermine Naomi's place in the household and started asking about the children's activities. She even brought Christmas presents that year, thoughtful ones that showed she'd been paying attention to what each person liked. It wasn't a perfect relationship, but it was a functional one. And sometimes that was enough. The months that followed were filled with small miracles and everyday joys. Graham started working from home more, arranging his schedule so he could be present for school pickups and bedtime stories. He learned to navigate playgrounds and movie theaters and all the places he'd avoided since his accident. Naomi officially moved into the house, her belongings mixing with theirs until it was impossible to tell what had been there before and what was new. Her books filled the shelves in the living room. Her coffee mug claimed a permanent spot in the cabinet. Her laughter filled the halls. The children thrived. Lily's grades improved, and she started participating in after-school activities again. Evan grew more confident, making friends at school and sleeping through the night without nightmares. They took the trip to Chicago they'd planned, staying in a hotel with connecting rooms and exploring museums and eating deep-dish pizza. Graham navigated the city with confidence, and the children glowed with pride at having their whole family together. It was during that trip, sitting by the hotel window while the children slept in the next room, that Graham brought up the future. I've been thinking, he said quietly. About what? About making this permanent, official. Naomi's heart skipped. What do you mean? Graham reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. This time, Naomi knew exactly what it was. I mean, I want to marry you, he said simply. I want to be your family legally and officially and in every way possible. Graham, I know it's only been a year. I know we're still figuring things out. But I also know that I want to wake up next to you for the rest of my life. I want to grow old with you and raise children with you and face whatever comes next together. He opened the box to reveal a simple, elegant ring. Not too flashy, but beautiful in its simplicity. Will you marry me, Naomi? She looked at the ring, then at his face, then out the window at the city lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere in the next room, she could hear Lily talking softly in her sleep and Evan's quiet breathing. Her family, her home, her future. Yes, she said softly. Yes, I'll marry you. The kiss that followed was sweet and thorough and full of promises for all the years ahead. When they told the children the next morning, the reaction was exactly what they'd expected. Finally, Lily exclaimed, I was wondering when you were going to ask her. Does this mean Miss Carter will be our real mom now? Evan asked. If she wants to be, Graham said, looking at Naomi. I would love to be your real mom, Naomi said, pulling both children into her lap. If you want me to be. We do, they said in unison. The wedding took place 6 months later in the garden behind the house. It was small and simple, with only close family and friends in attendance. Lily and Evan were the maid of honor and best man, beaming with pride as they watched their father and their chosen mother promise to love each other forever. Diane was there too, looking elegant in navy blue and actually smiling. She'd brought a gift, a photo album filled with pictures of Graham as a child, his parents, and family memories. On the last page, she'd added recent photos of Graham, Naomi, and the children. For your new family, she said when she presented it, to remember where you came from and celebrate where you're going. It was the most thoughtful gift anyone could have given them. As Naomi and Graham exchanged vows in the garden where she'd once weeded flower beds while he watched from his wheelchair, they both marveled at how far they'd come. From employer and employee to friends to lovers to family. From broken and afraid to healing and hopeful. From existing to truly living. I promise to choose you every day, Graham said during his vows, in good times and in difficult ones. When you're easy to love and when loving you requires courage, I promise to trust you with my heart and my children and my future. I promise to stay, Naomi replied, not just when things are good, but especially when they're hard. I promise to fight for our family, to believe in our love, and to never let fear make our choices for us. When they kissed as husband and wife, the small crowd cheered. But the loudest cheers came from Lily and Evan, who threw flower petals in the air and danced around the garden with pure joy. Later, as the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, the new family sat together on the porch swing that Graham had installed specifically for moments like this. "Are you happy?" Naomi asked, her head on Graham's shoulder while the children dozed against them. "Happier than I ever thought possible. Even though it's not the life you planned." Graham considered this. "I've learned that the best things in life are rarely the things we plan. They're the things that surprise us, challenge us, change us for the better." "Like what?" "Like a nanny who was supposed to help with my children but ended up healing my whole heart instead." Naomi smiled. "Like a family that was supposed to be temporary but turned out to be forever." "Forever," Graham agreed, kissing the top of her head. In her sleep, Lily murmured something that sounded like home, and Evan's grip tightened on his elephant, and sitting there on the porch swing, surrounded by the people she loved most in the world, Naomi knew that she was exactly where she belonged. Home wasn't a place, she realized. It was the people who chose to love you and keep choosing you, day after day, year after year. It was choosing to love them back with all your heart, no matter what. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, you got to build that home with people who needed you as much as you needed them. Sometimes, you got to save each other. And sometimes, that was the most beautiful love story of all.